Well, good morning. Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. Still a little chilly. Want to talk today about the importance of always being ready to fight. We're still thinking about that situation down in Uvalde. By the way, welcome to everyone. Welcome to all of the new people, all the new subscribers, both on YouTube and on Patreon. It's great to have you here. A lot of interesting conversations going on with this situation. I want to preface this by saying that I'm continuing to read and watch what's coming out about Uvalde and the situation down there. As more and more information comes out, I become more and more disgusted with law enforcement response. I'm not going to get into the details of that. I am shaking my head in disbelief over some of the things that I'm reading and hearing. I know that we never, and as I've said before, and as an old dog who's been through this stuff, I know that the first information is rarely correct. Even as more information comes out, it's the veracity of it can be questioned. New information comes out, it's filtered through the understanding of those who hear it. Some of it's covered up, some of it's amplified, and we're getting into the point now to where everybody's going to start spinning this for their own protection or benefit. So I'm not going to make an immediate final determination on my thoughts, but I don't like what I hear and what I see. Excuse me, it's early in the morning. My allergy pill hasn't kicked in yet, so I'll try not to clear my throat too much with the help of coffee. And apologize when I do. One more thing about that. I've banned several people off this channel just in the last couple of days because of comments that they've made. If you want to stay on the channel, and I'm not talking to 99.9% of you who are great folks. If you want to stay on this channel, do not come on here and say something to the effect that all cops are Gestapo, only out there for their pensions or to do the bidding of their masters, or they're cowards or anything like that. Nobody has more problems than I do with what we're seeing so far coming out of Uvalde and other things. And that situation down there in Broward County. We did things a lot differently in my day. I'll tell some stories about that over on Patreon. But when you say things like that, not you, because I know you would never say something like that. When a person comes on there and makes an asinine, broad brush statement like that, I want you to understand that I take it personally. I don't care if somebody says, you shouldn't take it personally. I take it personally. It's my channel. I was a police officer for a long time. And I take it personally, and you'll get bounced. And you also talk about hundreds and thousands, hundreds of good, dedicated law enforcement officers that I have known personally, some who gave their lives in the service, who did not do the job for the bidding of their so-called masters, who did it to serve their communities and their neighbors and make the streets safer for their families. You know, I find it interesting that nobody, if you say something about a veteran, oh my gosh, the world will come down on your head. But you say what you want to about the police, and people feel that they can. So you're saying something about a lot of fine people that I've known back in the past and currently. There are some exceptional people in law enforcement now, and I'll have to be honest, I don't know why they stay. I don't know why they stay. They're not appreciated, the good ones, and they don't make that much money. Half of them have to work second jobs to support their families, and still they do it because of some sense of civic responsibility. And I have said more and more to those guys, get out. You're not appreciated. And maybe you can do just as much as a private citizen. So, anyway, you want to be balanced, that's the way to do it. Come on here and make a statement, a broad-based statement about how horrible the cops are. You'll get your wish, you'll be gone. For the rest of you, which I know is almost all of you, you understand what the situation is. Okay. You always have to be ready to fight. Always have to be ready to fight. And there are operating words in there. Always. Okay? Have to, meaning there's no question. Be ready. That doesn't mean get ready. And to fight means fight to the death. Okay, who is it that says? And I'm going to talk about how this relates to the broader world and Uvalde. Who is it that says? I think it's James Yeager who says, and I like Yeager. I'll say this right now. I don't watch his channel very much. It's just, it's a gun channel. I don't need to know more about guns. I am going to make one, however, about how he's wrong about the .40 caliber. But I like him. I don't know him. Never met him. But he says, I think it's he who says, and he's, for those of you who don't know, what is that? Is it Tactical Response? Is that his channel? He says something to the effect, I think his sign-off is remember that your responsibility to be ready for the fight never ends. I think that's it. Your responsibility to be ready for the fight never ends. He's exactly right on this. And that's what I was saying before. Your responsibility. I said this yesterday. The duty to act. A duty to act. We have seen law enforcement in many cases fall short of this. The last thing that I read this morning, and I have no idea whether it's true or not, but they were waiting for a ballistic shield before they could make the breach. We didn't even have body armor. We had a shirt and a 6-shooter. And I'll tell you stories maybe over on Patreon on some of the things that we had to do. And look, I'm still here. I've said in the past that and I made one of my very first videos was about the 3 enemies. And it's what I used to teach my combative students, my martial arts students, and what I would talk about when I gave seminars on self-defense. And I say that when a person who is not used to living a violence-filled life, is confronted with violence, they usually will go through several stages. They have 3 enemies. The first is confusion. They don't know what to do. It doesn't seem real. It's not right. It's kind of the OODA loop thing. But I taught this long before I ever heard of the OODA loop. It's pretty basic. Anybody who's been through it understands this stuff. So you're confused. The world all of a sudden has changed drastically. It went like that from the normal world you're used to a completely different reality of someone trying to hurt or kill you. That's not a mental leap that can be made comfortably by most people. Now, if you're a person who has dealt a lot with violence, and there are those of you who know what I'm talking about, when your life is violence or the threat of violence pretty much constantly, you become used to it. It's not a big deal. Okay, it's just the norm. Your norm has changed, right? But thankfully, most people don't live a life where they get used to violence, and so that when it pops up, it is unusual, and they immediately go to it's probably like being transported into something. I never experienced that myself because my initiation into the world of violence took place a little more gradually. First as kind of a spectator, and then I won't get into that. So they're confused. The next step after that is fear, and these happen very close together, because when the mind realizes that, first off, they're confused and they don't understand what's going on, and then it starts to creep into them. This is going to happen in a half a second. That they don't know what to do. They realize they don't know what to do. Now fear introduces itself, because it's just what's going on, and now I don't know what to do. This thing has crashed in on me. Not just physically. The threat is physical, but the crash is mental and emotional. And I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. Then fear takes over. Fear can manifest in a number of ways. It can lock some people up. It can make some people fight like hell. Everybody has their own response to it. But what it doesn't do is aid you in forming and executing a proper and effective response. Okay, you law enforcement guys out there, and you military combat guys, those of you who have been in combat know what I'm talking about. Your third enemy is the attacker. The attacker is difficult to deal with if you're first dealing with the first two enemies. If you don't have to deal, if you have gone past that, the first two enemies. See, without those first two enemies, the third enemy, the attacker, is much, I won't say easy, but simpler to deal with, because your mind isn't clouded and your mind is working, and you always want your mind in the fight. Seems like somebody else said that too. I don't know, it sounds like the title of a book. Is that Smokey's book? I don't remember. Anyway, people respond to these things differently. The reason that they do is because they are not always ready to fight. The things that have happened here recently, hopefully, is going to be tuning people up to understand they have to be ready to respond to a violent situation. Are more of these going to happen? Yes, they are. They are going to happen. And we could talk about why they're going to happen. We each have our ideas why they're going to happen, right? We each have our ideas why these things are happening. At the basis of it, it's the collapse of a society. We're in the middle of a collapse of a society. There's no getting around it. Zombie said today, I watched his Zombie Farmer, for those who don't watch him. Good friend of mine. He's a law enforcement officer. He's a deputy sheriff down in Tennessee. He's another one that I think of when you moron, well, not you guys, when some moron comes in and talks about cops are just the enemy. They're worthless. I think about Zombie, and you're bounced from him. I will bounce that asshole on his behalf. But he made one. He says the Civil War's coming. I don't doubt that for a bit, but I'm going to talk about that more on the other one, on American Reversion. So we have a collapse of society. What happened with this kid down there is exactly as I called it. Lousy relationship with his parents. Bad parenting. But whatever the cause of it, the reality, and you can't worry about why it's happening. You have to accept that it is happening. That's another problem with our society. Every time something like this happens, the news and law enforcement especially the feds, will say, we're still trying to determine why it happened. Doesn't matter why it happened. That's not what we're involved in now. And usually with the government, what that means is we need more people to study this. And first off, we want to divert the fact that we didn't do our jobs worth of shit to go over and we want to divert that attention to why is it happening? Let's make this a societal question. Well, it's a societal problem, but when it comes to you, it's a personal problem. You need to be able to take care of it, right? That comes from being ready. I've also said what I used to teach my students, and I had another video on this long ago, and that is that attacks happen suddenly, very often, but they rarely if ever happen without warning. There are always warning signs, and we see this, don't we? We see this in these mass shootings. Always warning signs. And when an attack occurs, it's because the warning signs, or when an attack is not able to be responded to properly, it's because the warning signs weren't recognized and acted upon. Okay, that's one thing in a bar fight. It's another thing here, but there are always warnings. So what does this have to do with you as an individual? What it has to do with you is that you have to be ready to fight. When do you have to be ready to fight? Always. How do you have to be ready to fight? To the furthest extent, I saw a meme the other day that it was just great. I might put it up. I don't know where I'll put it up. One of the Patreons. Excuse me. And it said, try never to fight. Something like this. It's got a picture of two little boys going at it. It says, try never to fight. But if you have to, fight like you're the third monkey on the ramp into Noah's Ark and it's starting to rain. Most people can't understand the true violence of an attack situation. Most people, maybe some people have been in a little scrap in school, maybe a little more serious scrap, but most people have never participated in, most people have never seen, let alone participated in a fight where one person is trying to kill another, to where the object of the attack is the death of another human being. Most people can't they've never seen it, never participated except on TV or the guys that play their little video games, and they think that's real. Most people have never seen it, and if you haven't seen it, if you haven't been involved in it, it's almost impossible to understand, but you have to try to make yourself understand it. This is a part of growing up. It's a part of being a big boy or girl, okay? Understanding that life-threatening violence is all around us in this world today. And you have to be ready to handle it. If you don't understand, if you won't accept that it's a possibility, if you don't understand that it could be a probability, and if you won't accept and understand that it could happen at any moment, you're not ready. And you have given up, you have failed in your responsibility to, as Jaeger says, be ready for the fight, or as I say, always have to be ready for fight. My last book was titled The Blessings of Freedom. And in the last video, one of the comments from one of our patrons on Patreon quoted Thomas Paine's quote about on which that book was based, and I put it in the front piece of the book. And I don't know whether he was saying that of his own accord or whether he was referring to my book. It doesn't matter. But it's exactly right. Thomas Paine said that those who would enjoy the blessings of freedom must, like men, or I would say, or like women, be willing to endure the support, the fatigues of its support. That means you have to be ready. The fatigues of the support of freedom, the fatigues of the support of life and liberty, is always being ready. The people that say, I don't want to carry a gun. I'm going to make a separate one on that because I find that so disgusting. I really do. Because you're saying that when you're out in the world, you don't have to participate in keeping others safe. And I saw a couple of comments like that on here. I was very disappointed. I don't think I banned them, but I thought, wow, that's different. Because in my day, I know I keep talking about my day, but you know what? I'm an older guy, and my day was better. I'm going to tell you right now, my day was better, and most of you agree with that. Even you younger people agree with that because you say, well, things sure have changed. Well, what's implied in that statement? That it was better back then, and it was. You know why it was better? Because almost all adults accepted that responsibility of keeping children especially, but women and children safe. If you wouldn't do that, you weren't a man. If you allowed a woman or a child to be hurt in your presence, society would spurn you. You wouldn't be able to live in your community. And nowadays, too many people will go, well, wasn't any of my business. And you know what? Everybody will forgive that. And that's the problem. That's the problem. I'm going to close this out with a question. The importance of being ready, the importance of carrying. Now, I'm going to word this question very carefully, and if you decide to comment on it, please word your comment very carefully, okay? Because I don't want to throw out good comments because of a misplaced word, okay? All right, let's get our thinking caps on. The importance of carrying, the importance of being able to defend yourself. Think about the scene down there in Uvalde at that school where all those parents were yelling at the police. Why aren't you going in there? They're killing the kids in there. One man is reported to have said, if you're not going to do anything, give me your vest. I'll go in and kill that guy. Many of the parents were trying to get in there, apparently. One woman who tried to get in, the police face planted her on the street, I guess. Handcuffed her. She was trying to get through. She was yelling at him, why aren't you doing anything? Go in there and take care of that. I'm with her. But they came at her. Handcuffed her. Apparently, she convinced him to let her out of the cuffs later. And the thing says it was federal marshals that handcuffed her. That seems very, very odd to me. That federal marshals were there and involved in this. But, could be a reason. Just because it seems odd to me doesn't mean there wasn't a reason. We'll see. Another man who apparently was trying to get in there, they maced him, or whatever they used today. Turns out his child was killed. Like I say, this was disgusting, but my question is this. If a lot of those parents had been armed themselves, were used to, that they showed up at the school and they all had guns on them, what do you think might have happened? I know, let that sink in just a little bit. You know what I'm asking. Be careful with your response, because if your response is a good one, I don't want to have to delete it, right? And you know why I would? It wouldn't be personal. I might totally agree with you and have to delete a comment because I said, whoops, can't let that go because that's going to flag the channel. It's more important for me to be able to maintain the ability to talk, right, than to go all explosive one time and and get shut down. Hey, that's the world we live in. You deal with the world we live in. You can deal well in the world we live in, and sometimes I talk about other groups who have. We do that on Patreon. Those are my thoughts, and that's my question for today. You always have to be ready to fight. Think about those guns again. Yeager puts it, he says responsibility. I agree 100%, even though he's wrong about 40 caliber. And I'll explain that. I don't know whether I'll do it on YouTube or whether it just be on Patreon, but I'll explain that. And he's right about one thing, part of it, but he's wrong about the application. I'll just give you that tease. Oh, what could Smith be saying? Always, operative, always means never a time that you're not. Be ready. Be ready, not get ready. Okay, you don't have time to get ready. Remember the 3 enemies: confusion, fear of the attacker. Be ready. That means be mentally ready, be physically ready, meaning have the tools that you need to address the problem and fix the problem. To fight. Fight like you're the 3rd monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark and it's starting to rain. Because other people's lives, the lives of children, the lives of the defenseless, could be at stake. Your own life could be at stake. Somebody made a comment on yesterday's that I found very unfortunate. And I'm not going to talk about that. I'll let it go. Let me know your thoughts on this. If you're not with us on Patreon, come over and get on to Patreon with us. It's only $1 a month. And I tell you what, with this stuff going on, I talk about stuff over there you need to know. I have some experience in this. I want you all to know about it. I want you all to have the information. And as I do with my students, I kind of guide people without the experience into a way of thinking so that they will be more ready than they are without it. Okay? And you need to be ready. Remember, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. There are people not living well today because some others did not prepare well yesterday. You all have a serious day. I always say have a good day. Have a serious day. Keep those people in Uvalde and everybody else that experience these things in your thoughts and in your prayers. We do. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.